imitation. So when you imitate something, what do? You do whatever the other one is doing. So there's works here, there's doing here, there's activity, all right? In imitation, you are matching and mirroring and doing what the other person is doing. So he's telling his beloved ones, he's saying, beloved ones, do not imitate evil, but imitate good. Now, this is why it's important, though. He says, because the one who is doing good is of Elohim. Once again, the things that are in Scripture are connected to doing, okay? Righteousness is something you do. Good is something you do. Being one of Elohim is based on what you do. Okay, it's not like you haven't seen him, because nobody's seen him that way. He's saying, but you're not getting it. It says, if you're doing evil, you don't get Elohim. Okay, but when you're doing good, you're of Elohim. So just kind of work that into more of an understanding through the idiomatic understanding. He's saying, well, he hasn't seen him. It's like, well, you think, what does that mean? They haven't seen him. They haven't seen, they don't see him as he is. They don't get it. You don't know who you're dealing with, what you're dealing with. And what determines, from an outside viewer, what determines that? What you're doing. The one who's looking at you and observing you sees that you're of Elohim because you're doing good. Sees you're not of Elohim because you're doing evil. And realizes that if you're doing evil, you really don't get it. Either you've never been bubble popped or touched by him, and that's why you're doing evil, or you were touched by him, but yet you refuse to see him as he is and receive that. So I just want you to understand, so there were those among the Jewish community that had all kinds of, and they still do today, all kinds of very strong beliefs that are not correct. I'm not saying they don't have a million beliefs that are correct. I'm just saying there are some, and they will throw those at you when it comes to understanding Messiah and the things that Messiah talks about. Look, we're going to get to in John, right after this, where John goes, where Messiah, heals somebody on the Sabbath, and the Jews go berserk. Because they convince themselves, there's no scripture to say this, otherwise, that you can't heal somebody on the Sabbath. You're breaking the Sabbath. So that's an idea that they came up with. Now, of course, they were extrapolating it out of what was in the Torah. So it's not bizarre that they came up with this, okay? But Yeshua said, I'm sorry, but that's just not true. But this is a warning to be aware of people professing to know Elohim, but they have their own agendas that they keep pushing. Okay? Be careful of those pushing. It could be the shape of the earth. It could be the calendar. It could be, whatever. Okay? And by the way, it doesn't mean that some of these things don't have any truth to them. Maybe somebody's pushing something and they actually could be, it's the pushing that's wrong. Imposing that belief on you that's wrong. All right? Some people think, they'll always call us a cult and stuff. I don't push anything on you. I do from the microphone, and you can ignore me, walk away. And I don't come to you and try to impose and make sure you're doing anything I say. These people will push for you to agree with them and then do works that show you agree with them, okay? They're imposing themselves. Do you know that Yahweh doesn't impose himself? Did you notice that in Scripture? By the way, what does it mean in the tombs? Does it mean literally dead people? Absolutely, on some levels. It also has to do with, as Paul would say in Ephesians, you were dead in your trespasses. There are those in the tombs that we would consider the tombs, those who were dispersed and punished into being like a eunuch with no future, right? Now, but he says, very importantly, that the hour is coming. He says, and when they come forth, what does come forth mean? It doesn't mean just come out of the grave. It's when they manifest what they really are once they're hearing the voice. In other words, their bubble is popped and they get to make a choice. So you've got so much more understanding now, of perspective to maybe understand these verses than before you ever learned any about this bubble popping and whatever it is. Remember, everything in Scripture is parable, pointing at a bigger understanding. He's saying, look, he's going to render you according to your works. He's going to render everlasting life as a reward to those who do good work. Not only do it, but persist in doing it. See, a lot of people think this is the anti-altar call verse. Because altar call is one day, one time, you walk up, that's it. Okay? I mean, we don't do them, but I'm just saying, consider that a work. It is a work. You still have to get up and do it. He's saying you must persist in doing good work, whatever good work is. We know now good work is from the above. What's from the above? The Torah commands. There is no partiality with Elohim. All right? In other words, it doesn't matter if you're a Jew or Greek. What matters is what you do. That sounds fair to me. Sound fair to you? Doesn't matter if you're white or black or green or yellow. Doesn't matter if you're tall or short. Doesn't matter if you're fat or ugly or pretty and gorgeous and perfect or rich or poor. I mean, it's what you do. Stop making it about anything other than what you do. Okay? It's not about whatever. I mean, your educational, I mean, you could use any dumb thing to use as a measuring stick. What do you do? It's not hard stuff. It's not, at least as far as understanding it. Don't work on Sabbath. Okay. Do I need like a rocket science degree or something to do that? Okay? So there's no partiality. Everything in here, everybody can do. For when the Gentiles who do not have the Torah by nature do what is in the Torah, although not having the Torah, they are Torah to themselves. What is that in the world that's not talking about? First of all, get the commas out of there because they're put in wrong places. And there isn't any commas in the Greek. Okay? He says, when Gentiles who don't have Torah by nature. Well, that's a little different. Because you say, oh, well, the Gentiles, by nature, they do what's right. No, that's not what it's saying. They don't have it by nature. He didn't give it to them by nature. He says, so when the Gentiles who don't have it by nature do what is in the Torah once they're shown it, although they didn't have it by nature, they are a Torah to themselves. In other words, they are now coming under that in their own way. See, this gets all confused because of the translation and the punctuation. Remember, because what is the reason for saying that here? Because it's always that battle that Paul is dealing with between Jew and Gentile. He says, for circumcision, now bear in mind, Paul is not talking about circumcision. Well, how can you say that? He used the word. He's using it as a metaphor for the Jew. And the uncircumcision is a metaphor for the Greek or the Gentile, okay? He's saying, for the Jew indeed profits, having a circumcision indeed profits you if you practice the Torah. In other words, being born into, that's what he's calling the circumcision, those born circumcised, and they were circumcised on the 8th day. Not someone who comes later decides to circumcise and be part of the group, right? He's saying, those of you born into this, he goes, it does profit you if you practice the Torah. But if you are a transgressor of the Torah, your circumcision has become as if you were not circumcised. Because what is circumcision? A sign of what? Covenant. There is no partiality, no difference where you end up based on your choices. What's different is where you started, okay? And it doesn't matter where you start, praise Yah. It matters where you finish, all right? And by the way, none of you are finished. Unless you're gonna die like right after I say these words, you're not finished, okay? So you have to keep persisting in good works, as he says, okay?